Hi, this is Genevieve Day, and you are listening to Uncommon.
This podcast is brought to you by Neuralle Media. Are you an entrepreneur or marketer who needs help making podcasts, video, or animation? Perhaps you don't have time to manage a freelancer or the budget to deal with an agency. Well, Neuralle Media can help you with simple and affordable content creation, saving you time and money by taking away the pain of producing that content. To learn more, head to neuralle.com/media. That's neuralle.com/media. Play around with our pricing or request a callback directly. Listeners to the show receive a special discount by using the promo code UNCOMMON. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon. My name's Jordan Michaelides and I'm your host. In this episode, I've got for you Genevieve Day. Jen is the founder of talent management agency Day Management, which represents clients across both the digital, talent, and podcasting space. Jen is undoubtedly one of the sharpest minds in the talent and influencer game. I think every time I read an article about this field, either Jen or Jules Lund from Tribe are referenced in the article, at least for quotes, opinions, etc. She's strategically smart at selling while also having a feel for where industry trends are moving and how to develop tone for brands and influencers alike. And I think that really gives her a sense, or a unique sense of where the puck is going in the media landscape. In this episode, we discussed a lot, including principles learnt from her parents, how she defines success, what PR means to her, the importance of networking, catalysts for her business, the rise of influencers, and day management sales process. If you like the episode, leave a rating on your podcast app or consider sharing with your friends by taking a screenshot, post it on your Instagram story and tag us. It's just at uncommon_podcasts. To watch the episode in full, search Uncommon Podcast on YouTube and don't forget to like and subscribe. All the show notes, all the links, everything, including all our previous guests, are at neuralle.com/podcast. That's neuralle.com/podcast. With that being said, thanks for listening. Our regulars, every week you guys come back. Our newbies, thanks for giving us a shot. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with Genevieve Day. Jen.
We're on.
We're doing it, finally. How's your day been? No pun intended.
Yeah, very good. It's been good. We're working on a lot of things at the moment, so been running around, but I'm here now.
Okay. I was thinking about icebreakers. We saw the doggo earlier, but I had an interesting insight from one of the interviews you did. You spoke about how, what was it, that you had never had a real opportunity to go away on like a very long holiday.
Yeah.
Like, as in, I know you've done your trip to America.
Isn't that sad?
Well, I mean, I can only say that because I've been able to do that. Laura and I went away for 6 months. But It just had me thinking about, if you were to go away for 6 months, where would it be and why?
Ooh, this question gives me anxiety because I can't leave work for 6 months. So in this scenario...
Just imagine that the business is sweet.
Okay.
You've duplicated yourself.
I mean, I love London. I've been to London like 3 or 4 times. I always go back there. So I'd happily go there. But the reason I love it is that it feels like Melbourne, which is such a... I'm a creature of comfort and habit. So yeah, that's where I'd choose.
London. I love London. I mean, I love the UK in general. Mm-hmm. Is your background with last name like Day? You got to assume that...
Yeah, I'm like British, Irish and German, which is just all the palest countries combined. So when I was in Dublin, everyone's like, oh, you're one of us. Yeah. You belong here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd assume so. I mean, Lauren's got a... I know you say German, but Germans are, like in terms of their background, very similar to the English. Lauren's parents are... Her mum's from Yorkshire and her dad's from Germany.
Okay.
And she looks like the most cliche looking English girl you've ever seen.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, you know, like brunette type. What is it? What do they call it? Like the English rose.
The English rose. Yeah, that's literally me. The rosy cheeks, the pale skin. And my dad speaks fluent German.
Does he? Wow. Yes, it's like we're in Berlin. And we were overseas. This is part of this 6-month trip, right? And we met up with Lauren's parents, and her dad just sits down at this cafe with us and starts speaking fluent German.
Guten Tag, yeah.
Yeah, like, but just he'd never told us, never told her. She studied German.
Wow.
And he'd never told her. And he just started speaking fluent German. Is the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Well, apparently when my sister was born, she's 5 years older than me, Dad would come home from work and try and speak German to her when she was a baby. And so he wanted to make her bilingual. And apparently as this like 6-month-old baby or whenever kids talk, she turns to him and she just goes, no more Guten Tag. She didn't like it anymore. So when I came along, I didn't get the opportunity.
I've had this theory because my dad's Greek, right? I've got a theory that you're almost guaranteed to learn a second language if your mother knows the language. Because I've noticed that if the mother knows that language, and because they're there so often in those early years, they reinforce that behavior.
Yeah, totally.
Like I was talking to Sam Wood the other week, and he was saying that I always feel like I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Snez.
Yeah.
But he says that you pronounce it Snezhana, like a J, not a Z. So Snezhana speaks Macedonian to their daughter. So, and everyone I've met that has kids that are bilingual, the mum essentially speaks. It's
always the mum.
Always the mum. Good on you, mum.
It's that emotional labour that women have to do more around the household, including train their kids how to speak.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, if you're thinking about your childhood, what's sort of the earliest memory that you have?
A wonderful segue. I was actually a really shy child.
Okay.
And I was born ambidextrous.
Really?
This is one of my favourite fun facts.
Okay.
So I used to paint with like a different colour in each hand, a bit like an octopus, like the red in one and the green in the other.
Really?
Yeah. So that means...
So you just like this, just drawing with both hands?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Like a bit of a maniac. Everyone's like, is that kid a sociopath? We're unsure. But it means that your brain doesn't develop one side more than the other. So I actually couldn't speak. Or I spoke like gibberish. I wasn't understood. So I had to go to speech therapy as a kid. And the running joke is that it worked too well because now I don't shut up.
How old were you?
Like 2 or 3 maybe.
Okay. Wow. When did kids start speaking?
Yeah, I actually don't know that. I should. I have a lot of talent with babies and with kids.
Yeah.
But they could be 2 or 7 to me.
I feel like it's something around... it's got to be around like 8. I know kids make noises when they're 1, that's for sure.
I mean, kids don't shut up.
Yeah.
In the apartment above us, there's a newborn baby, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which part of town do you guys live?
South Yarra, of course.
Okay, of course, naturally. It's where all the happenings are for influencers in Melbourne, right?
Oh, yes. Office in Paran, live in South Yarra.
Got to do it that way. Now, your parents, I find it interesting looking back on your own history, so... You grew up in leafy Canterbury. Mm-hmm. Do your parents still live around the area?
They do. They moved to Camberwell, so that's like a stone's throw away.
Yeah, it's very, very close.
Yes.
You went to Strathcona. Your dad's a doctor. Mum's a teacher.
Yeah.
Do they both still work?
They do, actually.
Okay.
My dad is so ready to retire, I think. He's like becoming a grumpy old man. But yeah, so he's a neurophysiologist, which is really cool.
Okay.
And all my friends kind of assume he's a brain surgeon, and I've just stopped correcting people.
Now, a neurophysiologist, what would they do that is different to, say, a surgeon? Or
well, they don't do any surgery.
Yeah, but what's the physiology element?
It's like the muscles. So it's like MS, those kind of diseases of the brain that is muscle related.
Yeah.
That's probably as far as I know.
I feel like I remember years ago I had this thing, they call it optic nerve drusen.
Ooh.
It's where you get like these deposits in your optic nerve. It's not a serious thing, but it's like
it's
serious. Just like a hereditary sort of calcification type disease. But all it does is it somehow affects like my peripheral vision sometimes. So like if they give you a test, the only way it gets found is if you do your regular checkup at what do they call it? The optometrist.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I saw this ophthalmologist. They send you off he must have been a brain surgeon because who else would operate on optic nerves? It'd have to be a neuroscience.
I mean, I've seen
neurosurgeon.
Grey's Anatomy enough times to know that is a brain surgeon that does that. Yeah.
Yeah, they God, there'd be good money in that. That's a very, very technical, intense field.
So he's not that.
Yeah,
but everyone just assumes that he is. They're like, oh, your dad, the brain surgeon. I'm like, sure, okay. You've known me for 10 years. You should know this by now.
And what does your mum teach?
She teaches geography.
Okay.
And theory of knowledge.
theory of knowledge.
Yeah. So it's like there's VCE, then there's IB. And IB is like if you're too smart for VCE, that's what you do. And you have to do, it's like philosophy basically.
Okay. Very
So
interesting.
it's an IB subject.
Right.
So she's just part-time now, but she loves it.
Did you do IB at all?
No, it didn't. It wasn't offered at my school.
That's weird, isn't it? Only some specific schools offer that, and a lot of people select the school based on whether they want to do IB.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's better.
Yeah. I always had this belief that it was. Anyway.
We digress.
We do digress. I'm intrigued by reading about your parents, and it seems like there were certain things that you learnt from them, but I was just curious to hear it from you. Are there principles now in your business that you use today that they taught you directly or indirectly
absolutely.
at all?
I think that you were always a bit of a reflection of your parents. I think that's just innate in you as well, in your environment, the whole like nature versus nurture. And yeah, my dad, well, both my parents are really hard workers, especially my dad. So growing up, he would work crazy hours as young doctors do. And then he would kind of come home and we had a study at home as well. So he'd come in from work, maybe have dinner. He wouldn't eat with us because we'd already eaten. And then he would go to the study and do his notes there. And that was just really normal for us. And I think the good thing about it was that we knew that's why we could have a nice house. And that's why I could go to that good school. And so it was never like, oh, dad's always working in a negative way. It was more like, oh, he works really hard. Like, what a lovely trait to have.
Yeah.
Like, how lucky are we?
And this is what it results in.
Yeah, totally. And so I think for my sister and I, we both just saw that. And then with our own goals, we're like, cool, well, we also want to have this type of lifestyle, but that means we have to really put our heads down and work hard. And other influences, I think, is just both my parents are really big on school and academia. So they really liked that pathway of like doing university and doing well in high school as well. So that was interesting. And then when I kind of turned to them and was like, well, I'm going to start my own company in this field that doesn't really exist yet, it scared them for sure.
Yeah. It was very interesting looking at your upbringing and sort of relating it to my own. Like my parents were very similar, except they didn't come from an academic background. It was always very entrepreneurial background. So I feel like I missed that. I was lucky enough to go to a good school because my brother got a scholarship and then they give you a discount because your siblings going there and all that sort of stuff.
Nepotism, yeah.
Nepotism. It's fantastic stuff. So I was quite lucky to go to a private school and yeah, I was looking at the subjects you selected. Like you were saying that you're a bit of a history buff. And I've always loved history, but I never selected, my selection of subjects was horrendous. I chose English and literature.
Same.
I should have just chosen one. Like back then though, well, because there was other things that I should have been doing. So I did those two. I did VCD. So I've always had an appreciation for design, but I've never been good at it.
Okay.
So I should have recognised that there's a difference there. I did the classic for the maths, and then my fifth subject was accounting because I loved numbers and making them add up and balance and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't do economics. I should have done economics. And I didn't do politics or history. And I almost wish that, it's funny looking back in hindsight and seeing that if you sort of mapped it, how things would have gone, like would I have done something differently?
Yeah.
But it seemed like you found out what you just chose what you wanted to do and you went in that direction.
I mean, it wasn't like I was following my passions. I mean, I was, but I also was like, how can I get the best score here? So I'm very pragmatic and I wanted to be a winner. I remember it was like in year 11, maybe it was year 10, I got a B on an English test thing. And my teacher pulled me aside and she's like, what the hell is this? And I was like, oh, that's fine. It's a B. And she's like, no, never again from you. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Wow.
So then I just got like A's and A pluses.
What year was that again?
I think it was year 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I was a little brat before that. So I was like a bit of a little shit in primary school and high school.
I was a massive shit early high school years. I think I was in detention every week in year 9 for a period of time. I was a very naughty boy.
And it's very easy to rebel at a private girls' school.
Yeah.
Because you wear your skirt a little bit too short. You don't brush your hair. You put makeup on.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't care.
I was always in trouble for stupid things like haircut stuff.
Yeah.
So I always really wanted to have outrage. I remember at one point I had a mohawk. It lasted 4 hours.
Wow.
I got in. I did a few classes, and I feel like one of the teachers used to have this like cadets thing that we did at school.
Is this Scotch?
No, I went to Brighton Grammar.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And we did cadets, and there was a guy he was sort of in charge of discipline, classic private school stuff. And he like upholds like all these things, like the way that you dress, all that sort of stuff. And so he just came into the room and he's just like pointing at me and coming over here. And then they took me down to the barber and shaved my head.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if you could do that anymore.
Oh, no.
What was that thing that happened with Trinity or Carey, or there was some school where some teacher got in trouble for cutting a kid's hair? Or
I think so.
Yeah.
Just standard discipline stuff.
Yeah, they always used to, there was the usual people like myself and a few others that always got in trouble for not being clean shaven. And so they'd give you the most horrible razors and like this old shaving cream, and they'd send you to the bathrooms and tell you to shave.
Oh, wow.
It really hurt.
We just got handed makeup wipes.
That's right. So you couldn't wear makeup was like the big thing for girls growing up in high school.
Yep, nail polish. If your shoes were undone, like rips in your stockings.
Yeah. Short skirts and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's interesting. I was looking as well at your background before you got to day management.
Yes.
So it's obvious you got a good score at high school. You went to uni, RMIT. I can see that you majored in PR.
Yes, so I did professional communication, which is like PR, media and journalism, and then you choose a major of those three.
Okay. Why PR? Like, why was it just something that you just enjoyed more than other classes?
Well, I was already working in PR at that time.
Okay.
So that was part of it, back to being pragmatic. I think I was looking for the easiest route, but also the most successful route.
Yeah.
So I did want to explore journalism. I loved writing, again, with all those humanities things. I did like English and Lit, and I loved that outlet for myself. But yeah, I think I always excelled in communication. I was good with people, and I was good at that kind of campaign creativity.
Yeah.
So that's what I liked about it.
You've said a few times about success. Like, what does success mean to you? Does it mean being a leader in a field? Does it mean being the best at something? Is it like a dollar amount? Like, how do you sort of think about that?
It's a funny question to ask me today because I've been trying to find the answer to that recently.
Really?
Yeah, I think that I started my company on my 24th birthday.
Okay.
And when you're 24, what you care about then is a lot different to when you're 28 and a half, and that kind of stuff. So I think when I started it, success to me was all the exposure, and it was, being the name people know and being rich and all that kind of stuff. All the superficial things was success to me. And then now I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, but I don't want to have to go to that event. Oh, do I have to go to the races again? I'm so tired. So it's definitely shifted. And so I'm trying to figure that out. And I think I was setting all these goals for myself, like, do this many sales billing per month, or have this much staff and this many talent, whatever. And then you hit that and it's like, well, that's a bit empty.
Yeah.
So who knows?
What makes you happy, do you think? When are you happiest when you're working in the business?
See, the hard thing is I get a lot of joy out of it, so I don't have enough boundaries for myself. So I think I'm happiest when I actually have boundaries from my job, because it lets me then have mental space and clarity when I'm in it as well.
Okay. When you say boundaries, you mean like you've got to stop working by X time?
Yeah.
You can't, be doing this thing on a Sunday.
Like put the phone down, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I suffer from that big time.
And if you think about it, like if you were on call to your boss, and that's one person that can text you. If I have 21 talent, those are 21 people who are texting me at all times. And that's part of the job. And I enjoy having an intimate relationship with my talent. So, of course, they can text me on a Sunday, or, of course, they can message me or call me at 9 p.m. at night. And that happens all the time. But it does also mean there's no boundaries there.
Yeah. And, so how have you thought about giving yourself guidelines there? Like, do you say, I don't respond after 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or...
Ooh, I mean, I always could just not respond, and then it's kind of my own fault that I am responding it. I try and cap phone calls. So some talent will call me like 4 to 5 times a day.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm trying now to just be like, okay, you've already spoken to me twice today. that's all you get and just screen the rest.
Right.
Which sounds awful, but
you got to do it.
Yeah.
You've got X amount of time in the day. You don't have infinite amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting business that you're in. I mean, I wanted to talk about before that because I feel like you working in PR was such a crucial element or helped you build the blocks before you went into this. Like, I don't think if you'd not worked at hatching, you probably wouldn't have had the success
absolutely
that you had and before, because you sort of worked up the ranks as well.
Yeah.
So you saw each different scale of.
Well, I did my work
company.
experience there in year 10.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I literally went there for a week because the owner was on the board of my high school and my dad was the chairman of the board of my high school.
Yeah.
So again, I'm very privileged and I need to acknowledge that privilege that I had connections in the industry from my parents and my school. So I did work experience with her for a week in year 10 and I'm 16. Like, what do you know then? And then when I finished year 12, I called her and I said, look, I got this enter score and here is my interests and what I think are my skills. What should I do? And she said, you should go to RMIT and you should come and work for me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it all started. And my first thing was the Moomba Festival that I ever worked on.
That's right. Do you still have that VIP media pass?
I think I moved recently and I threw it away.
You threw it away.
Yeah.
No, you should have framed that. You should have just put it up on the wall in the office.
I felt so special. I felt so special. And I was. It was cool. Like, you're working this massive Melbourne event and, I had a AAA backstage pass and I was getting everyone coffee and I was a very big part of that day.
What is it about being, like, when you went into PR, what is it that you get out of it? Like, for example, when I do these interviews, I just love the connection that you make with people and, like with anything, when you're in media, you build a sort of community in a way. And I've always loved that, I don't know, just that feeling that people get something from it and there's this whole communication element to it. So I guess I'm curious from your perspective, what have you, or like when you had that excitement at that event, what did you love about that?
I mean, for me, a lot of it was the networks and I really enjoyed having, again, those relationships.
Yeah.
And I loved that if, my client wanted to get into a certain newspaper or magazine, I could make a phone call and be like, hey, like, you can do this favor for me. And I'd get results that way from my relationships.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I excelled at that. And we had a lot of hotel clients. So I got to be like, come and stay at this 5-star hotel or come to Bali with me in a trip. And I took a group of 6 influencers to Bali back in like 2013. So one of the first Insta meets ever in Australia.
That's right, yeah.
And that was with like Nadia Bartel and Lindy Klim and Tully Smythe was there. And that's when I first met Tully.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny, I was emailing them all and they thought that I was this like 35-year-old woman and I was 23 or something. And I rock up at the airport. I'm like, hi, it's me, your host.
Wait, are you saying that you think they thought that?
No, they've told me that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They were like, you're so professional. We thought you were very old.
It's funny, though, that I feel like when you're in the industry and your persistence, if you're persistent, you follow up with people, they're always surprised by your age.
Yeah. And the baby face does not help either. So I probably looked 17 when I was 23.
Probably be good for you in the long run, though.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, I hope so.
Better pay off. But yeah, so we worked with a lot of hotels like that. So I could then kind of call in these favors because I was like, well, I got you this incredible 5-star stay. So you have to write about my other client too. But I loved that kind of role playing in it. And my nickname was the Puppet Master.
Aha, that's interesting. I feel like in that period of your career, because you were speaking about in another interview about the fact that there was a relationship. Well, I was focusing on the fact that, at 16, you hit up hatching. Mm-hmm. It seems like you had a bit of a mentor there, but you're reaping the rewards of deals a few years later. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's a lot of people who work in the industry who don't realize that. I feel like how valuable networks and relationships are. Yeah, definitely. And even back to RMIT, like the people in my classroom, one of them is now the editor-in-chief of GQ Middle East. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's crazy. He was my best friend at uni.
Hang on, I feel like I know that guy.
Adam Badawi?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a guy.
Someone mentioned him to me recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why. They were like, you should definitely get this guy on.
Well, yeah, whenever he's back in the country, for sure.
Hi,
Adam. And like another one of my uni classmates is the Melbourne Central marketing manager.
There you go.
So we do a lot of work with Melbourne Central.
Yeah.
So I think I've always seen opportunities everywhere in every interaction, whether that's with a stranger on the street or in my workplace or in the classroom. So yeah, it's been really helpful for me. And it's surprising in emails now, even like how many people went to my high school or is a friend of mine. And the person that wrote the AFR story on me, my name was already thrown in the mix, but she was like, oh, I knew her. She used to do musicals with my ex-boyfriend 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so I just always kind of see the value in these relationships.
Yeah, that was Yolanda, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so having been in the fintech space, I've known her for a while. She's great. But it's one of those things you don't realise till you sort of get to the age of like 28 or maybe you're sort of, you've been out of uni for 5-10 years maybe, and you're just sort of starting to see the value in those relationships. And I think when you're younger, you don't realise in hindsight.
Totally. And I found uni a bit tough because I'd gone from this high school environment where you were kind of, we're in a cool girl group and you knew how it worked. So I knew how to excel at high school and like the female politics of it all. And, you wear the right clothes and go to the right parties. And it was quite an easy thing to navigate. And then I went to uni and everyone there was very alternative and they were very indie. And I'm like, hi, is this still a cool thing to do? Like to watch Gossip Girl? And everyone's like, no, you can't do that.
Gossip Girl was great though.
Oh, the best.
Big fan of Gossip Girl.
But I was I was mainstream girl at uni, where everyone was wearing like thrift shop clothes and...
That might have just been RMIT though.
Yeah,
RMIT
totally.
Always had... I mean, look, unis always have that vibe. I remember even in because I did like my degree was in commerce, right? So I feel like you would not get the indie hipster types, but yeah, you do. You've always got those types at uni, but of course they're always dominated in the art space.
Totally. And I was definitely spoken down to quite a bit. And it's funny, one of the girls who thought she was a little bit better than me 4 years later asked me for a job.
No way.
And I was like, this is so sweet.
How good is that?
Tastes delicious.
There is something about that though. When you've been slogging away at something for a few years, 5 years, whatever it may be, and someone who used to talk down to you comes back in some way, maybe it's a congratulations or it's following what you're doing, whatever it may be, there's something very, very nice about that.
And it's funny, you spoke before about like my childhood, my upbringing. On my dad's side, everybody, they're all like CFOs and they're all business people, and my sister is a lawyer and they love that about her. And so they didn't really show much interest in me because I was kind of irrelevant to them and their communities. And then the AFR piece came out and they're like, hang on a second, are you legitimate?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Let's go down to the catalyst for day management. I think it's obvious that you're working in the media space and you clearly saw an opportunity there at the time. It's hard because I know your first gig was with, I think it was Josie Barber, and you sold this deal to Joe Mercer.
Yes.
Right? But I feel like there's like a crossover there. You were still at Hatching and you just started this.
Yes, I was a little bit naughty.
Okay.
So yes, on my 24th birthday, I took an annual leave day and I went to the bank and opened up a business account and got my ABN and got the business name registered. I did all like that kind of admin stuff and I just got an email address. Everything else was like pending and I just had Josie and literally just started kind of pitching her out to people. And I was doing it before work, on my lunch break, after hours. And the quantity was so small compared to what it is now.
Yeah.
But I was doing it in secret for a little bit. And then I think it took me about 2 months to tell them, hey, I have this side hustle and it seems to actually have legs on it as well. Because I didn't want to tell them and upset them if it wasn't going to go anywhere. And by that stage, other influencers were hearing about this and were like, oh, you're going to represent me as well. And I approached some of them. So it kind of, what's it called? When it's snowballed, not cannonballed.
Yeah,
snowballed from there.
Yeah.
So I did it 6 months at both, but I went a couple of months on the DL and then I told them about it. I went down to part-time, but they made me come in. My part-time was 5 days a week, 2 hours a day.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was tough. I think in retrospect, I look back and I I could have handled that better, absolutely. But it was an exciting time, and I was young, and I'd kind of come to the top of my PR career, I felt.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was learning much new, and these new exciting things were happening in the digital space.
Yeah.
And we weren't really adapting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were you thinking at the time when, what was the aha moment when you thought, I'm going to take the day off tomorrow and I'm going to go open this bank account, get this ABN and all that?
Ooh. I mean, I think I just had a gut feeling that this is going to have legs to it and this will work.
So you thought, I'm just going to put it out there?
Yeah. And I thought if no one knows, there's no risk of failure.
Okay.
Because I had a big fear of failure, and I still do.
Yeah.
And I thought if no one knows about it, I can't be embarrassed if it goes badly.
Okay.
So I just did it in secret for a really long time.
And how long had you been mulling over doing it?
Probably not long enough, like probably a month or something. And I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
I probably was thinking about it for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating how these opportunities show themselves, right? Because like for yourself, it's like I said, it seemed obvious that you saw there were no agencies. There's obviously a gap in the market in this specifically.
Yeah.
And that also you just really wanted to be a part of it. Why did you think that influencers were the next form of celebrity? Because like just to give context for the audience, stories weren't around. The environment that we exist in today was not as it is with Instagram.
Yeah, and back then they were bloggers.
Yeah.
So all of my people that I represented had blogs, and people wanted the blog post for the direct links to shop and SEO reasons, and Instagram was like a value add. So that was kind of such a massive shift in itself. And the agencies that were around before me were more like model bookers who then were booking social media.
That's right.
So it was kind of like they saw it as a standalone one-off booking as opposed to my view of the campaign. So I could, understand that there was a massive marketing campaign happening that might have a TVC involved and might have an ad campaign in a magazine, and then we played the small part in it. But I still knew we were part of a wider strategy. Yeah,
because that's what I was thinking about. Like I read that, and they still do in a way, like some of the talent have, like the bigger talent have a model agency that still deals with them. And I was just thinking like, how did they miss this? Like how did they not realize this should have been like a team in and of itself within the agency?
Yeah.
But I guess that's what happens when you're sort of, you've been there in the industry for so long. It's hard. Every business is different, but I feel like a lot of people miss these early opportunities. Yeah,
or they think that they can do it with their experience in that other area.
Yeah.
Whether it requires such a bigger, broader, holistic view of it, I think. And that's the difference.
Okay.
And so I think that we are more understanding that we can work with a talent agency that does acting, and we're like, we'll do their social media, you can do their acting. Or with a modelling agency as well, we try and work collaboratively because not everyone can do everything. But I think that our difference in the market now is that we do offer different areas. So we recognise you can be a podcaster but still be an influencer.
Yeah. I think what you're starting to realise is that you represent not so much influencers but talent.
Well, yeah,
talent
the way
that have audiences.
Absolutely. We break it down like people with influence.
Yeah.
So in a world where everybody is an influencer, everyone thinks that they're an influencer, we kind of try and look at it like people who have influence. That doesn't mean they all have 100,000 followers, but it means they might have a business background. They can speak on that authority, or they could be a stylist or from MasterChef or have a podcast or have, been on another TV show. And that gives them the cut through and the influence.
Okay. Interesting. And so then because that was one thing you've spoken about in previous interviews about tone of voice. Because I feel like that's what you guys have done really, really well. I've noticed a lot of your talent have a very clear, like not so much like let's say you look at their Instagram bio, they've got a very clear line about what they are about.
Yeah.
And then it's very obvious what type of brands would fit amongst that.
Well, I think you have to be.
Yeah.
And again, in a saturated market, if you're trying to appeal to everybody, you'll appeal to nobody. So, and we break it down with them as well. We kind of help strategize and say, if you want to be working with high-end brands, then don't work with boohoo.com. Or if you want to be in this lifestyle space, you can't exclusively just do food stuff. You have to, be more in the other areas too. So it's very intentional.
Yeah. What do you think most brands miss? Like you've gone from brands to talent. thinking back to the days of dealing with brands, where do you think they really miss their tone of voice? Is it that appealing to everyone?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and what I used to love doing, you'd make up like a brand person. It's like an old school advertising tactic.
The persona.
Yeah. So you're like, Judy is 45. Judy shops at Coles.
Yeah.
Yeah, Judy's going to buy something on special.
Okay.
And she's the customer. So I kind of always think about that for brands as well and how we tap into that. Okay. And it's interesting now because, you know, obviously the biggest market on Instagram is 18 to 24. Well, for a lot of our girls anyway. And then that next demographic up to 35. And they're the ones that have the disposable income. So brands prefer to work in that demographic because they can actually shop. Uh-huh. But I get a lot of requests now being like, hey, do you have anyone over 40? Or can I have a 55-year-old, please?
Really?
Yeah.
Just specific to having that audience? Like it doesn't matter what platform they're on, or someone who is primarily based on Instagram?
Mainly on Instagram.
Interesting.
And it doesn't really exist.
It doesn't,
because
does it?
Our parents aren't really on Instagram. So
they are just getting onto it.
Well, yeah.
Are your parents on it?
My mum, she'll hate me for this. My mum has a secret Instagram account because she doesn't want her identity to be stolen. It's so funny.
That's so good.
And also because she's a teacher, she wants to have that privacy. So she has like a cryptic Instagram name.
Of course.
Her handle's very cryptic.
Yeah.
And she just posts photos when they're on holidays. So they look at my stories and she gets around the emojis and stuff. So
yeah, I feel like our parents a lot of the time they get an account to monitor what we're up to.
Absolutely.
100%. We'll come back to the demographics in a moment. I want to talk about that when we talk about ROI. Mm-hmm. With the first, so you got this deal with Joe Mercer, the shoe brand. Tell us about like the first 6 to 12 months. Like how did you scale it up? Were you just literally pitching deals every single day until it got to a point that you could hire someone? Or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, at first I had to really scope out talent as well to have enough of an offering to go to these brands.
Yeah.
I remember the one thing Joe Mercer said to me when I just had Josie, they were like, well, who else do you have?
Oh, really? Okay.
And I was like, oh, just her right now. I said from my living room, like on a sick day from work or something. So yeah, then I was like, okay, I need a pool of talent to offer these people.
Yeah.
So then I kind of scouted around Melbourne and no one really had management. So it was very easy. So I got a really great group of people who were quite strong in that fashion space. And I just did female fashion influencers then.
Okay.
And I had about 5.
And who were the first people that said yes?
I had, Josie Barber. I had the Twice Blessed girls. Okay. Christy who I still work with. Jessa Lizzy, who I still work with. And then Tully came on board as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did those conversations look like? Like I'm guessing you sort of already conversing with them through Instagram and chatting and whatnot.
Well, through my PR job, I already knew them. So I was already taking them to these trips and going to beautiful restaurants or spa experiences in my PR job. So, you know, who doesn't like that person?
I know. And what like a way of showing authority as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they had seen that and know that, they must think, oh, she's legit. This isn't just some lady that's worked at a media firm and wants to get into this thing. Like she knows what's going on. There's something there. There's something tangible there.
Yeah, and I think they saw that I was really hungry for it. And I'm still really hungry for it. I'll never be satisfied. But yeah, I think I really just wanted to prove myself as well. So I took the time to knock on every single door. And I knew a lot of the other PRs, again, from my networks at uni and just being in the industry. So I was very shameless about it. I really checked my own ego and was like, I'm just going to put myself out there. And I went to everybody.
Yeah.
And it was, I think the first 3 months when I was trying to do it part-time as well, it just exploded.
Yeah.
It was massive.
When did it get to a point where you realised you couldn't do this part-time thing anymore?
Well, I was making more than my salary. And I was like, that doesn't seem right. If I'm doing it as a side hustle, but I'm out earning my job, like that doesn't seem like the right balance.
Yeah.
And so then I took it full-time at the end of that year. So I kind of started, what year was that? 2016?
Yeah, that sounds about right. You started late 2015,
so
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So January 2016 was like my first year of doing it full-time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then I did it by myself for another 6 months and I should have hired someone a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I wanted the control of it and people wanted me. So I didn't want to outsource the relationships, and that's what I was kind of selling people to sign on.
When you think about selling, because I feel like it hasn't really been touched on in prior interviews how much you've got to get the deal done in this business.
Yep.
Like to the talent business, it's all about the deal.
ABC,
right?
always be closing.
It is. It literally is that. And that's what makes someone relevant in this space. So, let's think about the Joe Mercer job. When you principally go into pitching these people, where are you going with that? Like, what's the main idea in your head? Is it brand awareness? Is it a conversion? What do you think it is that influencers offer above other mediums?
Well, I think we try and tap into their campaigns first and foremost. So we're not asking for money as an aside, where it's out of the blue, they don't have that marketing spend. And by doing that, we tap into the calendar year. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay. So you're like, oh, there's Valentine's Day coming up. I bet Michael Hill Jewelers has budget for Valentine's Day advertising. And there's so much in a calendar year. Like we're working on Father's Day right now. Then there's the Spring Racing Carnival, Melbourne Fashion Week's coming up. Then there's Christmas.
Interesting.
New Year's Eve, Portsea Polo. I could go on.
So you literally looked at the calendar and you thought, okay, and I can tell this is something you would have learnt back at the PR firm. What are the events and things coming up? And what can we be doing around that?
Well, that's like your news hook.
Yeah.
You're like, well, why would I be talking to you?
Yeah.
And people send out terrible pictures that have been forwarded to me, which is quite funny.
Yeah. Never authentic. It's always, it's always just some copy paste slab.
Or it's like, you should work with me. I'm really amazing.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
No.
Instead, I'm like, well, how can I make your life easier?
Yeah.
What can I add value to you?
Yeah.
And I think that's just the sell.
Yeah.
So that's what I love doing is tapping into their own marketing plan and predicting, your spring summer drop for fashion's coming up soon. How can we promote that for you?
Yeah. Who taught you to sell? Was it at Hatching?
No one taught me to sell. I think I was born this way.
I was born this way.
Yeah.
Like that song is playing in the back of my head right now.
I used to literally go to Vodafone with my dad and I'd be 15 and I'd be saying to the guy at Vodafone, you can do a better offer on this.
Yeah.
I know you can. And my dad was mortified, but I got a better offer on it.
Yeah.
I've negotiated everything my whole life.
Yeah. There's something fun about it, isn't there?
Yeah. It's the win. I want the win.
Yeah. It's getting that win, the competition. I can see that now.
Yeah, I'm very competitive.
Yeah. All right. When you think about, the way that you've consolidated this business in, let's say, the last few years. So when you went from one deal a month to 87 plus a month.
Yeah, probably more now.
Yeah, I'd assume, because I think that interview was like a year or so or more ago. What do you think about, what are the main principles you have when running this business? Like, what are the top 3 things that you have to have in check for you to be happy? Not that you're ever fully happy, but like, what do you have to have? What makes you feel happy in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, just having control, I think. There are so many moving parts that you have to have an element of control there. And especially having staff, I need to be on top of what they're doing. And that involves a lot of like scheduling. So we have so many spreadsheets. People don't realize that I spend most of my life crunching numbers on spreadsheets.
It's good though.
It's so helpful. So much in the Google Drive. So yeah, just having that control over, I know when Sarah needs to go to Sydney for that job and Adelaide for that job, or when she's booked out for that speaking gig and that photo shoot. So then I won't double book her.
Yeah.
Or I know this person is at capacity right now with the jobs that they're doing, so I can push that back to August, September.
Yeah.
I think just being across them personally as well. So if they aren't able to deliver something that I'm not telling the client they can, disappointing them. So managing everyone's expectations and having just an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
We even have like a big board in the office to make sure each talent is working at the right capacity. And one person isn't overwhelmed, one person isn't underperforming. And just having that awareness changes the conversation.
And how do you think about capacity? Is it like X amount of jobs or deals per month or hours?
It's personal to each talent as well.
Right.
Like for some of my fashion girls that work full time, they can only shoot on weekends.
Okay.
So we're not going to give them 25 jobs a month because they can't deliver that.
Yeah.
Or they'll kill me. And some of them don't want to do certain jobs. Or the others are like, yep, let's cash in on this. Like, let's make the most while we can. So it's really personal per talent. So we kind of set that expectation with them as well when they sign on. We're like, what do you want from this?
Okay.
And, you know, obviously I love it if they want to do every job ever, but it's also okay if they want to say no.
Yeah, because you can scale it up and down. You know, if their capacity's only 20 hours a month, then you don't have to sell as many deals as someone who's 40, 60, 80, whatever it may be.
And even like saturation in their own feed, it can take away their value. So we need to make sure we're not overselling them. And the good thing is we're leaning away from one-off sponsored posts and more towards ambassador deals, brand alignments, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then more like 6 to 12 months as well. So it means that if we're exclusive to Garnier, we don't get tempted by another brand. We don't have to be.
Okay.
Because we know that work's coming in. And then for me as a business owner, I know what billing I have coming in as well. I can afford to hire someone else. So it's definitely a lot better having that structure.
The staff that you have, what's the bulk of what they do? Are they account managers? Are they operational staff?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting split. So one of them is like the operations logistics.
Okay.
How she just makes it all happen. So if like I land a job in, I then give it all to her and she has to be like, well, do you want the red dress or the blue dress and what size and what's your postal? Like things like that, details. I can't do details. So she does that, but the rest of them do a bit of both. So they'll do a bit of sales and a bit of operations. And we just find that it works better to split it per genre rather than per role.
Oh, okay.
So they'll work on the family talent or they'll work on the lifestyle or fashion.
Okay, yeah, that's probably the better way. Like a lot of businesses that have account management type stuff, you break it down based on segment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it means you're having the right conversations with the right people and you can tap into that for more opportunities.
Yeah, and you become knowledgeable in that specific area. Okay. Now, talking about ambassadorships, that was one of the key things. I feel like I pulled that from... Was that the AFR article?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, something around that. But that is definitely something I've noticed, particularly in the last 6 months.
100%.
Yeah, like more, all of a sudden, like people are ambassadors for health insurance brands. It's like, wow, okay, I didn't realize this brand was like really into that stuff. So maybe we'll talk about ROI because I know in the early days, those questions would have been big. I think it's more obvious now, but I was just curious, like what are the CPMs typically like? Like how are they set? Is it dependent on the talent? Like how do you guys think about this sort of stuff when it comes to ROI?
I mean, it's always social media marketing is a brand awareness tool.
Okay.
And it has to be that first and foremost.
Yeah.
And like any advertising, a consumer has to see something 7 times before purchasing. That's the general rule of thumb and has been for the last like 50 years.
Okay.
So we're part of that overall brand awareness, which then sales is a byproduct. So we can never guarantee you're going to make $1 million in sales, but we can guarantee 1 million people will look at that post.
Okay.
And so we set KPIs around impressions, reach, engagement, like swipe up, clicks, that kind of thing. But we never guarantee sales in like a monetary amount.
Okay. So it is a brand awareness campaign.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I mean, you can have things like promo codes, I guess.
Totally.
And that's been a big thing in podcasts.
It's so much more successful in podcasts.
Yeah.
Influencers, it looks like you're a sellout if you have a promo code. In podcast land, it's like, thank you for that discount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's an interesting difference in that. I wonder
Totally.
why that is.
I think people are used to a radio ad speaking to you, where they see Instagram as being, I don't know, there's so much resentment there on Instagram for ads.
Yeah.
So if it's not as authentic, if the caption isn't as authentic, I don't like it.
So I guess then it seems obvious if you get an ambassador, it's going to work for you better in the long run because you're getting sort of economies of scale.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like you're willing to pay this person. Like how do most ambassadorships work? Do you pay X amount of dollars and there's an expectation of work? How does that?
Yeah, there's an absolute scope of work and it's like a monthly scope of work. And then you get paid for that 12 months. Like, for example, Sarah Holloway has about 4 ambassador deals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's at capacity.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't want to have her do like a one-off sponsored post because we're like, well, that then takes away from Amex, who she's an ambassador for.
Okay.
So we get like a monthly brief in from all of our ambassador clients. And it's amazing because there's none of that hustle required to get it signed off or like quoted up. It's just like, hey, it's first of the month. All right, what do you need from us this month?
Okay. Interesting. And it's a sort of a win-win as well. Because like if you think about it, that talent has now got specific brands and I'm going to guess that a lot of the time they've already liked the brand.
Oh,
because
yeah.
You've got to if you're going to repeatedly do this work with them. So yeah, it sort of seems like that's the perfect model right now. for this medium?
I think it's also great because it means that we can be exclusive to them. There's none of that like flip-flopping on brands which gets everyone in trouble.
Yeah.
Everyone, not my talent, obviously. So, yeah, it means that we can be exclusive and we can marry to them for 12 months. It means it's guaranteed income for us. And it also saves the brand and the PR agency time because they don't have to spend each month looking for new talent to work with.
Yeah.
So we try and go to agencies as well and say to them, we'll be your retainer structure. You can rotate our talent, so you still have new, fresh faces. But don't worry about all that hard work finding new talent. Just come to us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're kind of like the one-stop shop.
That's super interesting. What do you think about platforms in the space? Like, there's the obvious one like Tribe, but another one is, I don't know if they're a platform or...
HypeTap?
Pardon?
HypeTap?
Not
Scrunch?
Hey Influencers is what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
But platforms like HypeTap and Scrunch are amazing where they get the brands in and then they find all the influencers for them and their strength is in the reporting.
Okay.
So their strength is in, they're a data app basically. So they're selling the data. Yeah. Okay. So we work with them a lot and really closely.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
HypeTap. Sounds interesting.
There's like 3 streams of revenue in my world.
Okay.
So there's the brand directly, there's the platforms, and then there's the PR agencies or the ad agencies.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So and in your avenue of influence, the most relevant platform is this HypeTap thing that people are looking at.
I work with them and Scrunch a lot. Yeah.
And what does Scrunch do?
The same thing. They get brands in, like U-Foods is a big client of theirs. And then they give this big reporting back to them.
Interesting. Now, thinking about talent as well, I know you said before a lot of the early part of the business was building up that stable of talent. You've sort of got this group of influencers that are in these different segments, but I've noticed now, of course, that you're starting to look at podcasters. I guess I'm curious as to how do you view this expansion? Like, do you think it's based on segments like influencers versus podcasters, or do you think it's segments like fashion versus jewelry or food or whatever?
I think it goes back to that people of influence.
Okay.
So you can have cut through commercially if you have a big podcast audience, or you can have cut through commercially if you are an influencer on Instagram or if you were on MasterChef. So I think I look at it that way, and I saw the effect these podcasters were having, and I saw them as talent.
Yeah.
Because they are their own brand.
Okay.
And I think people in the space were offering like a broadcast view of it, where it's like, well, you get X amount of dollars per downloads. You are a radio station. I'm going to charge it like a radio ad. But they weren't taking into account the brand that they've built. Yeah, and that was kind of what I saw that was different. I'm like, if they've built this big brand presence and the recognition and everything that goes with that clout, basically, that's why I can charge more money. And so some of our talent who have 10,000 followers, 60,000 followers, those aren't very big numbers. But because of who they are, you can charge a really premium rate. And so I saw podcasters in that same realm. And obviously the Shameless Girls is who I started with. And then Sarah started her podcast as well, Seize the Yay. So it's kind of been through the talent lens looking at it, but they're definitely influencers in their own right.
And how long ago did you reach out to the Shameless Girls?
We started talking in December. And then we all
went last year?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And then we all went on holidays for Christmas.
Yeah.
Good timing by me. I was like, hi, happy Christmas Eve. And then we met up in January and we started working together at the end of Jan.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you've got quite a stable of talent. I mean, if you go on the website on Day Management, they're all listed there, but the obvious ones are Shameless, Spoonful of Sarah, Seize the Yay, as you mentioned before, Tully as well, Rachel Watts. There's a lot there. I'm curious, and Khan Ong as well. I noticed, is that recent?
The last couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, we love Khan.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's always been one of those guys that I've seen over the years, whether it's DJing or MasterChef or whatever.
Well, I knew him for like the last 5-6 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. And then he went on MasterChef and we're all like, oh my God, Khan can cook.
What have you learnt from all of these influencers? What have you learnt about the business of media from them?
Ooh. I mean, I think strength and vulnerability is a big lesson.
Okay.
I think that my talent have grown so much by being authentic and vulnerable in a world where a lot of people conceal their flaws or conceal their reality. A lot of my talent are really open about that and happy to share the good and the bad. So people, they have that kind of positive role model about them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between a socialite or a wag or someone who still has influence, absolutely, but can't always speak in that same way.
The following isn't as strong. Like if I think about like the Shameless girls, like they have such powerful influence.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they've built is incredible.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like Laura Henshaw and Steph. Like I start to look at them as sort of like kingmakers in a way. Yeah. Like if a brand goes to them and works with them, like it's not that they're guaranteed anything, but there's a certain level of authority that is unique, I think.
Absolutely.
And it's So you think that essence is that they've learnt and this is where Instagram comes into their stories and all that. They've learnt how this thing works, how to be themselves, be comfortable, but, offer something as part of whatever they're doing. That's the crucial element.
Even things like, so I signed Jessa Lizzy when she had 29,000 followers. She's now at 305,000.
Wow.
And she used to always chop her head off in the photos and just do her outfits. And then she was like, oh, people want to see who I am. And so she started putting her face in it. And then when stories came about, she never used to talk to the camera or really show her life. It was just her outfit, her handbag, whatever.
Yeah.
And then she started showing, I'm at dinner with my boyfriend and here's me and my friend at lunch. And people are obsessed with that.
Yeah.
And so now she's like, hey, well, here's a mirror selfie because that's what you want to see from me. And the engagement on that post is like 15,000 likes versus a professionally shot image, which gets 2,000 likes.
Why is that? Why do we want to see this?
Authenticity. It's a trend. Yeah. It's a great trend, but it's definitely a trend.
Yeah.
People want to peel the curtain back.
Okay.
They want to see
They want access.
Yeah, they want access. They want to see who these special people are and what they do in their lives. So my talent really provide that.
Okay. Because, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot with what we're doing. And I've noticed, like you said, the people who are very successful seem to offer a lot of themselves. It's a hard thing to battle with, I can imagine. And
I think in 2019 as well, you can't just be an influencer. Like we call it the slashies. You have to be like an influencer / an author / a model / a stylist.
Okay.
You have to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest feedback I get from brands. I'll say, well, this person is beautiful, but what else does she do? And so then I can say, well, actually, she's the matcha maiden millionaire and she has a podcast. And so you can speak to more than that.
Okay.
And that's the trend as well.
And that goes back to working out your tone of voice. What is it the thing that you're uniquely equipped in to talk about?
Yeah, and I use the word authority a lot. It's like, what are you an authority on?
Yeah.
And you could just have kids and be a parent authority because you have kids.
Yeah.
And so you can choose whatever it is, but if you speak to it in that way, people turn to you for advice. They have influence over their followers.
So the people who are starting out now, who are sort of on the lower runs, it's all about offering some sort of authority in a specific niche. Yeah,
being able to speak to something and stand behind it. And then even I think with myself, in no means am I an influencer, but I think I can be a business authority.
Yeah, definitely. I think the simple fact that, I said downstairs, like you and Jules Lund are constantly referenced when it comes to...
Bloody Jules Lund.
This, I've got to get him in at some point, but when it comes to this area of influence, you guys are constantly referenced, I think.
Yeah, I think we both show the two ends of the spectrum where he's speaking to the content creators who have really micro, like 3,000 followers. And I kind of have that old school approach to management of that TLC and really that, intimate relationship and coaching them through it, but it's digital.
Yeah.
So it's those two different areas.
Yeah, it's very, very different. Like he's a tech operator and you're a people manager.
And he's a lot richer than I am.
Yeah. Well, he is on paper.
Yeah, okay.
He is on paper. I mean, the fact is, like, we've had this thing recently where we've been trying to scale our business and coming to the realization that you can't scale businesses that are involved with people, but they're different businesses. Like in tech companies, I don't reckon Tribe would make much money. Like, because they've got to raise money. That's the whole business model. You know what I mean?
I think in London they'll be killing it and realizing how small the Australian market is.
Yeah. Is there any like similar US platform? like Tribe?
There's a handful, but I think they do it a lot differently.
Okay.
Most of the agencies in the States are like me.
Are they really? Yeah, I mean, that was one thing I was thinking about when it comes to leaders globally. You know, you mentioned before about, it was so funny reading some of the answers. You obviously spoke about Lisa Messenger, but...
Oh, I love her.
I loved your reference to Britney Spears as well. That was good. But I was curious, like, being that you operate in this field of influence and media, are there particular media operators that you've always looked up to or thought about regularly? Like, as an example, about 6 months ago, I got really into Edward Bernays. He's the guy that came up with public relations, essentially, the field of public relations. And so just reading about him was super, super fascinating and how you influence.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to whether you've had anyone like that.
I mean, the answer is no, and isn't that sad? I don't think that there has been anyone that's been applicable to me. And yeah, I mean, you can read all like the leadership books and the PR books and stuff. I found Lisa Messenger really inspiring when I first started the business, and I felt lost and alone, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm self-employed. But I think in this stage, there isn't really anyone to look up to. And that's just, you know, the case of being new in an industry that it's new itself.
Yeah. So you've never like looked to talent managers in the US that sort of look after big celebrities or anything like that?
I mean, I loved Ari Gold from Entourage. He was my idol back in the day. Like, I'd watch that TV show and everyone's like, I want to be Vinny Chase. I'm like, no.
Isn't Ari Gold, he's based off like a combination of the guy from CAA and someone else?
Possibly.
Yeah. There's this guy that made the talent business in the US. He had an interview with Gary Vaynerchuk like a year or so ago.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of him and his business partner. And his business partner was the sort of crazy element of Ari Gold.
The yelling.
Yeah. The yelling, the crazy parties, everything.
I think that in the States, they're notoriously a bit dodgy as well.
Yeah.
Like the contracts are a bit shady. So I don't know. I don't really look to the States, but maybe I should.
Do you like follow any of what happens over there with sort of, because the big talent over there is YouTube, right? YouTube. There's obviously like Instagram as well, but like in that field of influencers, I've noticed like there's all sorts of things that have been happening, like like you said, crazy contracts where someone's getting screwed on a contract.
Yeah, it's
and they're
all
suing
very
someone.
dramatic.
Yeah. So you don't like ever look at that sort of stuff at all?
I guess I'm always like finger on the pulse a little bit of what's happening. So I'm aware of it, but I don't look to it for inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that we're a bit slower here to adapt to those trends or changes. Like YouTube still isn't that huge here in the fashion space. Beauty, absolutely, and gaming, totally. But it hasn't really been implemented in the same way.
Yeah.
So you can look to that market, but the market there is so different to our market here.
It's very different. It's like at least 5 years ahead, I feel.
Yeah.
When you think about 2019/2020, you were saying before at the start about how you're thinking about what success looks like.
Yeah.
What does the next 18 months look like for you?
Ooh. I mean, it's interesting because I was kind of the first talent agency to launch this podcast arm.
Okay.
And people still haven't really recognized podcasters as influencers.
No.
So no one really followed that trend that I tried to set. But that was still a big development for me. And I think just trying to be more diverse. And I think for me, what I'm enjoying is looking beyond just social posts.
Uh-huh.
So we're seeing these influencers as celebrities, like what you said.
Yeah.
So it's not just booking them an Instagram post or an Instagram ambassadorship. It's like, well, how can we get them a book deal?
Yeah.
Or how can we get them on TV or a radio show?
I think you're only really at the beginning of this business. I feel like this business has got 20 years ahead of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always said when I started, I'll sell it in 5 years' time and it'll be 5 years next year. And I'm like, oh, no, I can't ever sell it.
You would never sell.
No.
I can just...
Or touch wood.
I can read you up and down. You are never... like, if you're like me, if you do sell, it'll be when you're going into a completely different industry or you're retiring altogether. But I don't think you're the type that would ever retire.
I mean, people tried to buy me.
Yeah.
I've had that happen like 5 times.
Really?
And I always let them buy me lunch. I'm like, I will have a conversation with you. I'll let you flatter me. And then I'll say no.
Okay.
So it's always nice for that recognition.
There's a lady, her name is Diana O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her?
No.
She runs a lot of the events and tours for big celebrities that come out to the US. And she's like 72. Like she's been in the industry for 50 plus years, and she's like you would not know.
What's
speaking
her
to her on
name?
the phone, Diana O'Neill.
Not Roll?
No.
Oh, interesting.
So one of the guys, I think I mentioned to you, Josh, and his business partner who we had on, they've done a few jobs with her, but she brings out like random comedians, singers, just anyone you've ever seen a tour. I think she falls under the Tag Dainty. Is it Tag Dainty group?
Okay.
That entertainment group that brings out a lot of it's not Ticketmaster, but it's one of those other ticketing brands. Anyway, my point is, like, you remind me a lot of her. Like, I can see you being in this for years and years to come.
Thank you. Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted to be in like the entertainment like sphere, I guess.
Yeah.
And not many people know this, but when I was younger and I was working in PR and everyone was trying to get a job and they couldn't, and I should have been very grateful with my PR steady job, I wanted to go work in talent management. And this is before Instagram was a thing. There were no influencers. So I was calling up profile talent management who had like Hamish and Andy.
That's right. Yeah.
They might still have them, but they had, Hamish and Andy, like Danny Minogue, those kind of people. And I was calling them up and emailing them saying, I'm going to be your celebrity publicist where I'll get them publicity but also do these like bookings. And they were like, sweetie, that job doesn't exist. And I was like, no, it's going to be amazing. And then I was like, okay, I'll start at the bottom there and I'll come be like a talent booker then. And they never hired me. And I would email them like every 2 months for a year or something. I was so keen to work there.
Aren't you so glad that they said no, though, in hindsight?
But it's such like a sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to me that I didn't even know that I'd be here now.
Yeah.
But then I had an inkling I would be good at this talent management stuff.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be like celebrity adjacent.
It's very hard at that point in time where the industry's at to assess what it was going to become. And like I said, I still think that, there's so many things that we haven't covered, and I want to jump into some shorter, faster questions, but I feel like there's, even in the next year, if we get you back in a year, I can tell that there's going to be some massive changes for sure.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Yeah.
It was funny because I feel like I've been doing this for a really long time, but this year everyone's like, hey, let's talk to you about your company. And so all this kind of publicity has been coming up, which is amazing because any business owner knows that stuff is so valuable. But it's really been a big year for us for recognition.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to see what happens next.
Just before we get into that sort of stuff, what's been the strangest lead or most interesting form of outreach you've had, like where you've been ignoring that that person who dissed you and wanted to apply for the job? Is there something that really stands out?
I mean, we get really odd collaboration requests all the time for like vibrators, condom brands, head lice, everything.
Yeah.
So we'll get every product underneath the sun. And then otherwise, I think just the people who try and buy me, it's very funny.
Okay.
Or what they think that I do.
Yeah.
Or I get a lot of people wanting to work for me who don't know what I do.
Okay.
Like, we love your PR agency.
It's like I don't do that.
No.
Well, I sort of, but I don't.
No. Or I had this girl email me and she was like, I'm 16, I want to be an influencer. Here's my page. And it was just all of her in bikinis, like provocative poses. And so I wrote back to her being like, don't be afraid to be 16 and like love yourself and be careful if your future employer ever sees this. And
wow.
I was like, be proud of what you've built, but also respect yourself, young lady.
Wow.
She didn't reply to me.
Of course. No, she wouldn't. Did you have read receipts? I wonder if she read it.
No. But I try and reply to everyone that asks me for advice. I get a lot of those.
Yeah, so like you were saying all these emails that you get, ignoring the bulk of the ones being around deals. What are most the inbound emails that you get?
Oh, they're mainly deals.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I get hundreds a day.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds a day.
It's a good place to be.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I'm like nervous for this afternoon not being on my emails. They're mainly about deals. They're mainly leads that come in that people who've worked with me for a long time, like Maya will come to me and say, hey, we've got a campaign. Can we use you for this?
Yeah.
Or someone's like, help, we have someone pulled out this campaign. We need someone to help out. We knew that you can turn it around this time.
Yeah.
So it's mainly PRs, advertising agencies, and then obviously talent as well.
Okay. All right, let's jump into some shorter, fast questions.
Quick fire,
rapid fire questions, which somehow I've lost, but I know I'm off by heart. So first one, if we're thinking about a billboard that you can have anywhere, where would it be, first of all? Maybe think about somewhere in Melbourne. And what would it say?
Probably like that airport billboard.
Yeah.
Where you go up that ramp and it's
That
just above.
classic one.
Yeah. That's massive.
It's huge, isn't it?
And I want all my talent on there in a big group campaign they did together.
Okay. I feel like you had a group photo.
Yeah, we did a Christmas card. We copied the Kardashians
well
and we
done.
did a Christmas card.
Very nice. All right. Morning routine. What is that?
Oh, I wake up. I used to go to the gym. Now I'm too tired. So I sleep in. I might have a piece of toast if I have time. And then I just go to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And evening, how do you decompress at night?
Oh, I do emails until really late.
What time?
Depending on the campaign, 10.
Okay.
Yeah. But like in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching Glee and I'm doing that or that kind of thing. I'll have a break for dinner, obviously, and then emails and then bed.
Okay. And what time do you normally get to bed? Is it late?
Midnight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not too bad.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
I can sleep then. I'm probably lying in bed like, oh my God, that invoice.
Thinking about it,
Yeah.
All right. What's in the fridge at home?
Oh, I'm a terrible cook.
Okay.
I'm a big Uber Eats gal.
Nothing wrong with that.
I reckon I spend like $300 a week on Uber Eats.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm busy. I can't be bothered. At the moment we have, bread for toast in the morning. We try and make wraps.
Okay.
And my partner, it's like he works at Subway. He's like got a tub for carrots and a tub for lettuce. And so he like lines it up. We make like lettuce and chicken wraps.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's very into logistics.
Oh, he's amazing. And then what else is in there? Just like soy milk?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you prefer soy, like you can't have normal milk or anything like
Pat
that?
is lactose intolerant.
Oh, okay.
He's like actually allergic to it.
Really?
I know, how annoying.
Jeez. Yeah, I became lactose intolerant a few years ago. It sucks.
How do you become it?
Well, you just develop it over time,
Oh.
apparently. Most
just-
people lose, their tolerance to milk. It's just I was having too much gelato and all that.
See, I'll just like drink a whole glass of milk in front of him just to be like, yeah, you can't even do this.
That is the greatest. Just drinking that beautiful, full
and
cream
never
milk.
broken a bone. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, baby.
In saying that though, I remember my GP telling me, like there's more calcium in a piece of salmon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When I was like sitting there and she's telling me that, you can't have milk anymore, and I was like ready to cry. All right. A quote that you think about often or live by at all in your life?
Yes. Sarah Holloway told me this quote and I love it. It is, success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And that's a Winston Churchill quote.
I like that.
Yeah. Because I think I get really big highs from my job and I feel the crashes as well.
Yeah.
And I have a thick skin professionally, but I'm also really sensitive. So like I take it tough when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And things always go wrong and people are never happy. And
Well, you deal with it after the fact, behind the scenes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always protecting the talent from an angry client if they are angry and vice versa. So I'm always like the punching bag in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
So try and think of it like it's okay if things are going wrong. If I just keep going and don't quit, that is a success.
Well, look, Jen, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'll let you get off to your emails. Where can people find Day Management and yourself online? Where's the best place?
So obviously Instagram is
Yeah.
the best place. So we're at Day Management or myself is Genevieve_day.
Okay. Jen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for making it to the end. Before you run off, subscribe if you enjoyed this episode or do leave us a rating. For Instagram, go follow us on @uncommon_podcast. For YouTube, search Uncommon Podcast and don't forget to subscribe if you're watching this video. Also give us a like or leave a comment on what you thought about the episode. But until next time, thanks so much for listening.